All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to what's going to be a big week here. Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Also appreciate today's sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1531 Aber Road, just minutes away from Highmark Stadium. Great food, great drinks, great vibe. If you're a karaoke fan, you got to make sure you get up there on a Saturday. That place absolutely pops for karaoke. One of the more fun karaoke spots you'll find anywhere in Western New York. All right. Like I said, this is the start of what's going to be a very big week here, a monumental week of sorts at Talking Buffalo. Monday show, which means as usual. And by the way, we are actually streaming this on the video side live, as always, on Sunday night. I'm joined by Joe from Queens. So we got Joe tonight, Monday. Tomorrow's show, I got our 4th annual Podcasters Roundtable with
I got a alarm for that one.
3 of Joe's very favorite content creators in this world. Greg Thompson from Cover One, Bruce Nolan from
you got Jim Carrey on from the video side. Very cool, man. Carrey's a good get.
Of course, Joe Marino from Lockdown Bills. All 3 of them will join me for a 4th consecutive season of us doing this. We talk about pretty much everything and anything with the actual exception of the Buffalo Bills. So that's going to be on the show tomorrow. And then the big one, a very special episode, going to be recorded Tuesday night for a Wednesday podcast. It is episode number 1000 of Talking Buffalo. We're going to be live, Sunny Reds, and I'm going to be joined by Joe Biscaglia from The Athletic and Tyler Dunn from Go Long. Both of them will join me live from Sunny Reds to ring in episode 1000. For tonight, joined by Joe from Queens. You're just itching.
Yeah, I got to make fun of you for a little bit. First off, this is like the biggest week since your wedding week, possibly. You get to talk about yourself tomorrow night, about your contest. What's going on, Koala Bear Con in the chat? I don't know what the hell a Koala Bear Con is, but hi. But yes, this must be the biggest week of your life. I have a question. Do you ever promote my appearances on other podcasts of yours with like Matt Warren or
I'm making you from time to time?
No. It's one thing to say Joe from Queens said this and he sucks. It's another thing when you're like, hey, coming up this week, I got Joe on Sunday night, Monday morning. Do you do that? No, you don't. You don't. I don't even get a graphic. I've never gotten like me and my ugly face.
Because you complain when I put them on there.
You're right. You pick the stupidest photos. You should pick like The Rock. Like I want John Cena's hugging Cody Rhodes photo. Okay, that's what I want going forward for my full screen. If Jim Carrey over there, Bruce exclusive, can get a Jim Carrey photo, I can get a John Cena photo. So
I mean that's his gimmick. He's living the gimmick.
Yeah, but
I'm not drunk again, by the way, Mark.
How bad is the whole hangover today? Because you didn't respond to me this morning or even last night when I was like at all. Like you weren't drunk at all.
No. Well, I mean, I got my drink on Saturday, so we're in Buffalo, okay. And if you're in Buffalo, for a lot of people anyway, as you crack open your beer, I drank plenty of those on Saturday. Shamrock Run Party. It's an annual tradition, a family thing. The Shamrock Run. First weekend of March, that happened to fall on the 1st. So a friend had a party in their basement. We came, we drank, we conquered. I stumbled to my buddy, Mike from Imperial. Shout out to Mike from Imperial, his house. We watched the Elimination Chamber. Well, I didn't watch the whole entire thing. I did rewatch a lot of it, what I missed on Sunday. But by the way, that was wild. Yeah, I didn't want to get up this morning. What are you doing texting me before 10 a.m. on a Sunday? What would be your expectation?
I don't know. You're listening to other podcasts. You're preparing for the giant round table that you're going to have, the circle jerk with the other content bros. Maybe you were preparing for that. So
yeah. Anyway, so I did watch, and we're going to talk, by the way, for everybody out there, as always, if you got some comments, I'll throw up on the screen during the show. Questions or comments, I'll throw them up on the screen during the show. We'll save some as well as we circle back at the end. Today we're going to talk about, because free agency about a week or so from now will kick off, and we're going to discuss some of the best and worst unrestricted free agent signings of the Brandon Beane regime dating back to 2018. So some of the best, some of the worst. We'll talk about that today. Joe thinks the combine is stupid as always, so I'm sure he's got plenty of thoughts on that. One of the all-time, not just great Buffalo Bills, but all-time great NFL players, future Hall of Famer for sure. Jason Peters officially retired. We'll talk about him a little bit as well today.
I'm definitely going to go into business for myself. I'll bring
Good.
topics up that Pat doesn't want me to bring up.
Probably. You had a good idea that I wanted to hit on. If you're a hockey fan, the Carolina Hurricanes wore the Hartford Whalers uniforms against the Sabres last week. Of course, Carolina took that franchise from Hartford. You got some thoughts on that as well. So we're going to get to all that today. Like I said, primarily a lot of Brandon Beane free agency stuff in the past. Maybe talk a little bit about what could happen here as well. But before, let's kick this off. I got to talk about this for a minute because you know what? It is big news. All right. Maybe not necessarily for the Bills, but it's big news all over. What happened in wrestling every so often. Sometimes it takes years, but every handful of years, whatever it may be, something happens in the world of professional wrestling that people who are not really wrestling fans are talking about the next day. And that happened in Toronto on Saturday night at the end of Elimination Chamber. After 20 years, John Cena turns heel, beat the living shit out of Cody Rhodes. Travis Scott's in the ring. We'll talk about that in a second, too. Of course, The Rock, final boss. That was some wild ass shit. I got a couple thoughts on it, but before we get into some Bills stuff, let's spend a few minutes here. I'm sure a lot of people watching or listening to this saw it or know what we're talking about. What do you think, man? John Cena turning heel, the shock factor, and what do you think about how that story is looking, how it's playing out right now?
It's awesome. It's one of those wrestling moments where 20 years from now, I do plan on still watching wrestling until I die.
Me too.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back and go, I remember where I was for that moment. Like, and there's only like 3 or 4 that I can remember big moments, like the NWO forming, like where I was for that. Like, that's one of those moments where, like you, I was watching it, I was watching it here with my friend who comes over. We do wrestling, the pay-per-views, whatever you want to call it, every so often. And he got together and like just the entire thing. Cause I was like, obviously Cody's going to say the whole backstory was like The Rock wanted Cody's soul. He wanted him to be the corporate champion or whatever you want to call it.
Soul.
Yeah, wanted his soul, whatever the hell that meant. And then it was, and obviously Cody's going to say no, and you and everyone knew that. So it's like, okay, well, someone's going to have to say yes. And like that whole thing, I was like, okay, who could say yes? I was thinking maybe Drew McIntyre somehow wins because like he's been cutting great promos. He's awesome. Build a star. Like what? I mean, he's already a star, but like build him more. Maybe CM Punk. Like why not? And it never crossed my mind about Cena until like midway through the chamber. I'm like joking with my friend. Oh, maybe they're going to do Cena. It makes sense. Cena's a guy who's been on a losing streak for like 3 years. He put himself in the chamber match without having to do a damn thing, and that's what's best for business. Like that's what he said in this press conference after the Royal Rumble, all this shit. And I'm sitting and we joked about it. Like I didn't really think it was going to happen. And then I'll always remember I just sat there and I'm like, what's going to happen? And then like he hugged him and then I saw the look and I went to my friend and I literally nudged him. I was like, oh my God, he's turning heel. And I was like, my wife woke up. Like she woke up. And we watched it later because like he couldn't come over until whatever, 8 o'clock or something like that. So it was like 12 o'clock when we were like at that moment. And we woke my wife up. She woke up and she's like, I never heard your buddy scream or act that way ever. Like because she heard it in the bedroom because he was like, oh my God. And it was so epic. And like, I've been going back and forth like about like the best, turns of all time, like that you and I have been around. And like, I think Hogan is probably the consensus number one, like turning heel, like when he joined the NWO, like I felt probably that was like a big moment. I was like 16 and I was pretty smart to the business, but there have been so many moments as a wrestling fan where we all wanted Cena to turn. It was not like that with Hogan.
Right.
Like they were just like, he should turn heel. He should turn heel. Why the fuck isn't Vince McMahon turning him heel? He should turn him heel, blah, blah, blah. And that's where, to me, the shock was different because it was just like, oh my God, they did it. On his final run allegedly, who knows how that is, but like on his final run, he was going to do that. That never happens. Like it's supposed to be like the tour, like bye-bye, I love everyone. And
right.
It was awesome. And I could go on. Like I'd rather talk about this for 5 hours than the combine,
So
but it was beautiful. It was chef's kiss.
Listen, everything you said, completely agree with. The only thing I wish they would have done a little bit differently, if you would have told me 5 minutes before the show started, Cena's going to be the one, you knew somebody was turning. That much was obvious. Somebody was going to align with The Rock, and you knew it wasn't going to be Cody Rhodes. My only gripe is right before he did it. It was only Cena, Travis Scott, The Rock, and Cody Rhodes in the ring. It kind of felt like here comes Cena. At that point, I felt it. Like I kind of wish like CM Punk would have been in the ring too. Like maybe he's still laying down, hurt from being in the that finishing move, that ended the match. If someone else would have been there, would have been like, whose turn is? Could it be anyone, this person or that person? Once it was only Cena, though, I kind of feel like you knew it was coming. I mean, so what? I mean, it's 20 seconds where you knew it was coming before it actually ended up happening. The acting too, the way The Rock just was motionless, emotionless, I should say, his face expression didn't even change when that was going on. Cena, just the mug, the way his face looked when he did it, they just sold it so incredibly well. I think Travis Scott being involved was kind of stupid, but I also understand because it's pop culture and he's a name. People are going to talk about him being there, and it's going to get covered in other media outlets that it wouldn't be. This is WrestleMania season, so it's all about eyeballs and ears and as many as you can get. But yeah, dude, you mentioned Hogan. This was the biggest one since Hogan. Maybe his biggest Hogan.
I mean, and I don't know how you could duplicate that. Like maybe Cody Rhodes wrestles for another 10 years, and then he's a face the whole time, and he turns heel. Maybe that can change it, but like. It was insane. And with, you and I we love the bad guys. That's why you have me on your podcast.
I'm hoping. Do you think they're going to get some John Cena heel merch?
Oh,
I'm going to gobble it up if they do.
Yeah, I'm curious because they're going to do, I'm assuming they'll do different music. He'll do a different, outfit, tights. He won't wear the jorts probably anymore. I would assume that. I think with Travis Scott, the reason why he was there, I don't think it was all about pop culture, because it's like, look, Cena and Rock are pulp culture. Like Rock's arguably the biggest star in the world. Okay. Sure. Yeah. He's involved with that. Cena, everyone knows him like outside of wrestling. From what they've said, like he's been training to wrestle. And I'm predicting this. This is what I think is going to happen. There's going to be night one of WrestleMania. It's going to be a 6-man. It's going to be Cena, Rock, Travis Scott versus Bad Bunny, Cody Rhodes, and the glass shatters, and it's Steve Austin. I'm calling that, and you put that together, and fucking, it will do records. Fucking, I mean, they don't really do pay-per-views anymore, but I will. That's what I would do. That's
my fantasy mind has not quite that, but The Rock and Cena too much to overcome on night 2 in the main event, and Stone Cold comes out to kind of even.
Like last year, a little bit with
Undertaker. At the end. But anyway, that was just real wild. If we got some time, maybe we'll circle back.
And it was great.
It really was. Combine's been going on this whole week. I find it interesting and useful as usual. Shockingly, as you take a sip of your beer, that you do not. You still continue to think that the NFL Combine's just stupid, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. This year, I don't think it was as stupid. I know you want me to have this shoot scathing promo, keeping with the wrestling. It wasn't as bad this year because there was things I did want to hear from the Bills talking about. Like I wanted them to talk about like what happened with the special teams coach, what happened to the strength and conditioning coach. They did talk about the report card that the NFL released where they got an F- in travel, which is weird. I
heard what Matt Bove said something, but then you showed me a report about the Bills getting an F-. And I saw Matt last week tweet about something like the Bills had to travel out of Niagara Falls for half the season because of some construction issues. So instead of driving to the Buffalo airport, which is 15, 20 minutes from Orchard Park, most of those guys live around there, that they were having to drive 45 minutes or so to Niagara Falls or farther in some cases.
Yeah, well, my thing would be like, why wouldn't you just get a hotel in Niagara Falls area the night before and fly out? Like, you know what I mean? Instead of taking an hour bus, if that was the case, or what they want to do. But whatever. And they talked about the seats, the assignment seats in the article. Like the coaches get like preferential in the front, and they get bigger seats, and the players don't, which makes no fucking sense. I mean, Deion Dawkins in a coach seat does not sound like fun. Okay, like I would not want to be the kicker sitting next to him. Okay, on a coach flight, like that would be uncomfortable. So, but either way, like there was some stuff that came out. If there's anything I don't really care about, I mean, first off, we know the Bills bro beat loves to go on, the Griswold family vacations over there, and they gotta tweet the St. Elmo's fucking steakhouse. Let me tell you something that's what's very overrated: steakhouses in general. And I'm gonna tell you why they're kind of overrated. Like I like steakhouses; they're good. They're everywhere. So what the fuck you gotta take a picture of St. Elmo's, where the fuck that place is called, and every bro beat guy, like not all of them. Like I saw 3 or 4 did. Got to tweet out the fucking steak. Like, congratulations. Like, who cares, dude? Like, no one cares about your travels unless you're like doing something amazing. I don't know. Having a steak is not that. And I'm right. You could just say I'm right. Like, just you can send it. I know. Okay, like those buddies are still gonna come on this podcast of yours and talk about how great they are, but. Like that's kind of the only thing that's kind of corny. And it is manufactured, a lot of the talking points. I think people should go down there, and like the reason why you're going down there to me is like you should be connecting with agents, other players, getting sources so you can do future features. I don't give a shit. Like confirming like this guy met with the Bills, big deal. Everyone meets with the freaking Bills. They're all going to. It's not that big of a story, but that's it. I wasn't as angry about it outside of the same jargon that the bro beat does with like we gotta post our fucking food.
I will. The one thing of all that stuff you just said, the one thing I'll completely agree with you with, it's not news when a player meets with the Bills. I mean, whatever. If it's worth mentioning,
everyone meets with everyone at the combine.
They meet with dozens and dozens and dozens of prospects, as do 31 other teams. A lot of these prospects, they meet with probably a third of the league, maybe more, during the combine. So yeah, that's not big news. And
here's the thing: there were stuff like the Shakir signing, like that did happen, But if there's nothing that happens between like the season ended, like the last time we spoke to them was like a month ago. If nothing happens, and it does happen, I remember last year nothing really happened between the combine and the end of the season. It's like, what the hell like? What's the point? Like you're gonna send a crew out there to take selfies with steaks? And it just doesn't make sense.
Forget about the Indiana Pacers basketball game too. That's always an annual thing.
Well, that's look. I mean, I guess I sound like a hater.
I'm a little bit jealous. I wouldn't mind going to have a steak dinner and staying in a hotel. And
well, you should send your resume to one of the outlets. They might hire you. They're always looking. No one wants to work in this market because everyone's leaving. Go get there.
I thought Brandon Beane's and Sean McDermott, for the most part, they were pretty much what we expected. But and we'll talk about this in a few too. The comments again about Keon Coleman, I find that very interesting. Brandon Beane, I don't think it's not a surprise. People were reporting like big news, like he's willing to trade a first-round pick for the right player. Of course he is. He'll say that every single year. Yeah. That's not unique. He hasn't said that before. I don't really care about that so much. What I still love about the combine the most is it kind of kicks off for me and a lot of other people getting into draft season. Starting to learn about these prospects. Like every year during this week, there's a couple guys that a lot of people fall in love with. And this year there was a wide receiver, the kid from Texas, Matthew Golden, ran a 4.29. Love that kid. I don't know if he'll even last to pick 30, but I haven't been pro receiver to the Bills in the first round. I'd be happy with him. And then there was a corner from Kentucky, a Maxwell Harrison, who ran like a 4.28. Ran his way probably into the first round, a lot of people are saying. So there are some prospects. If you care about the draft, I mean, I'm not saying you don't care about the draft. You do care about the draft. You don't care to sit there and analyze and try to learn and study, dozens of prospects.
Dude, I'm a new dad. I got things to do, okay? I got to change diapers and make fun of people. I don't got time to wait till they come here. Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, if you're a draft nut, like, sure. But I don't think there's much you can take from that in terms of loving a player for their running ability in this.
Sometimes things happen, like, around the league. Like, Matthew Stafford staying with the Rams is pretty big news. I don't know. It's combine related, per se.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like you know what it feels like, man? It feels like, how it's sometimes, like, a movie or they'll release a trailer at like Comic-Con of like Daredevil or something or whatever. They have a movie and they're gonna premiere it at Comic-Con, or they're gonna have the first trailer. That's what the Combine feels like to me. It's just a fan fest of like, oh hey, we're gonna all come together and talk, and that's what it is. It's just like their little fan fest for like the media and for the players and teams to just talk. And like it's like when they talk to the actors at these Comic-Cons and they're like, oh, I was in this, and it's like they have a round table. That's kind of how it feels like to me. It's not much. One thing, with what Beane said and like other like that kind of, I don't want to say rub me the wrong way, but maybe I do. Oh God, I had the thought. He was complaining about the survey. Like we were talking about the grades, and like he was like, we have an open door policy. And it's like, who the hell, like what do you expect? Like everyone to like come into your office and be like, we hate the plane. Like, can you imagine if like Keir Elam comes in there who sucks? And he's like, yeah, you know what? I don't really like sitting in the back of the plane with in a shitty chair. Like he doesn't want to do that. He's already on borrowed time. That's why they have anonymous like suggestion boxes and things like that. And he was just kind of weird about that in the one of his quotes. And I was kind of like, all right, dude. Like, I don't know. It's sometimes Brandon Beane and even McDermott to a lesser extent, they kind of complain a little bit too much about things. And I'm just kind of like, even like if you go back to like them complaining about the officiating in the Chiefs game, like, oh, we knew we weren't going to get calls in Kansas City. Like, okay, dude, like, really? And like, yeah, you got to move on from that. Like, I don't need you to complain all the time unless it's like really, really worth it. You're supposed to like not let that shit get in your head, and they kind of do that from time to time. But
yeah, and one last thing I'll say about when they speak at the Combine, and all coaches and GMs speak too. It's the last chance to question them about free agency before free agency starts. The next time you hear from these guys will be close to the draft, and they'll be talking about the draft. So it's an opportunity to ask about free agency, and you're going to be aggressive. They're the same standard things, and Brandon Beane's, nor is any GM going to really give away what they're doing. They're pretty much leaving everything on the table, which is exactly what he did.
I know you have an IV to Twitter through the Combine. Did anyone even ask them about Amari Cooper at all?
Yeah.
I don't remember anyone asking about Amari Cooper. I did not see anyone saying, hey, do you?
So, and it was about, if it works for both players. That seemed to be a theme too. Like he's earned the right to, to go to free agency and whatever. There is one thing I want to circle back to.
Sure.
We'll discuss this and then we'll take a break. And on the other side, I want to get to some of Brandon Beane's biggest hits and misses since he's been GM when it comes to free agency. But Keon Coleman, again, just like at the end of the season, I thought one of the more telling quotes was them being pretty upfront that they were not happy with what they saw from Keon Coleman after he got injured. They didn't say a lot of specifics, just that he was not the same player after the injury that he was. Was he more injured than we knew about? Was it an issue with him working as hard as he possibly could to get back as healthy as he possibly could? Was the work ethic lacking? Was there something going on in meetings or whatever? But what was obvious, and you can't debate that, was his production went off a cliff from when he came back to that injury. 3 playoff games, he had 3 catches for 22 yards in 3 playoff games.
Well, they did, yeah, but they did decrease his snaps too. That's a big deal.
Sure. But are you surprised? 2 questions. Are you surprised at how openly, I don't say critical, but how openly they seem to question, or just mention the fact that, he was not the same player. Now, to be fair to Brandon Beane, he also said, look, the kid's 21. Don't beat him up when he's 21 years old. You know what I mean? It's not like it's his 3rd or 4th year in the league. The kid was a 21-year-old rookie. And Brandon Beane was also clear about that. But are you a little bit taken back about, I guess we could call it criticism for Keon Coleman? And conversely, and you and I were talking about this privately, not really much has been said about Dalton Kincaid, although I feel like it's more known that he definitely struggled with the knee for a lot of the season to come back, because he was not very good either after he got hurt in that Indy game.
Well, look, there's a couple things. Like, I guess I'm a little bit surprised that they would be open about it in public. They're usually a pretty tight nip. Everyone's great. We love everyone in public. Calling out, that's a lot. Like, it's like, hey, he needs to be better. We don't know the situation. And I think you want to be careful not to piss off Keon Coleman to the point to where he's like, after this, I hate it here, because something could have like he could have been still nursing that injury, and maybe he was frustrated and didn't want to deal with it. They just fired their strength and conditioning coach. Actually, we don't even know if he left, or that was one thing. Real quick sidebar: they were very ambiguous if he left on his own or if they fired him.
Officially, he was relieved of his duties.
Well, he said good luck to him.
Who knows? Yeah,
I don't know. They were kind of like good luck to him, or we like his family were. And he said something, McDermott, that led to like he decided to leave. But anyways, we don't know if any of that had something to do with it in terms of like maybe he was nursing an injury. Like if you're gonna tell me like, well, Dalton Kincaid, like he was struggling and he to do stuff because he had an injury or he was nursing one. Well, so was Keon. So like I don't know. It's a little bit like the same double standards. Like I don't know. It's all weird in terms of like what their perception is, like, or even fan perception, because it feels like there's more of it on Keon, a little bit on Bill's ex. And I get it. It's, there are people who live and die by this team every day of the year. Well, I think we should go on hiatus for like a month, to talk Bills, but I get it. People got to talk content and all that sort of stuff. But I do find it a little bit odd how they've been a little open about it, but it hasn't been like, I do think it is a little bit of like, we're probably fanning the flames a little bit in terms of this being like the news cycle that it is. We have to kind of still talk about this. It's going to, I mean, we've entered for people who did not hear me last off season, we've entered the Marge Simpson redoing the dress phase of the off season where we're talking about the same thing over and over. We're just recalibrating it. We saying it, reusing it.
There's a lack of news going on right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where I think a little bit of it at. Like, they tell them to like get into shape, but until someone like, look, you can sit there and go, I've heard this or DM this or someone DM this, until we get like a Tim Graham or whoever your favorite beat guy is who actually does their job, who gets sources and says like, gets down to the meat of it. Like, what happened? Was he not going to his rehab assignments or whatever? Was he not going here? We're not going there. Or were they pissed off? Or was he nursing it and he wanted to like rest longer? Until we get something like that, it's nothing. I mean, that to me is like what a guy, like if I was a news editor, I'm telling people like, hey, find out what is happening. Like, is there something with him there instead of this, like he needs to get in shape, or is it just bullshit? Like, it's just us taking a little kernel of criticism and making it into a bigger deal than it is. But
yeah,
we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's a big year for him. I think you always give a rookie the benefit of the doubt. I wasn't expecting much from him this year. I do think, maybe it took him a while to get caught back up. It kind of happened with Dwayne Carter when he was doing well and then he got hurt and then he never came back. Maybe that was like the same situation a little bit.
I don't know that he was doing well.
You like Carter was doing well. Dude, you've probably heard somebody ask
in the Houston game. That was it. Yeah, one game.
He was good in the Jets game too, and then he got hurt. He looked good. He looked good at times. I'm not saying he was an all-pro, but I'm saying the point is like he got hurt. He was out for a month. He never caught back up. That's all I'm saying.
Whether they're using the Coleman talk as motivation to him or just straight up criticism, what they are doing is putting a target on his back going in the year two. Not that he was ever going to go quietly in the year two anyway. I mean, they traded down. They gave up Xavier Worthy to do it. We all know that, how that played out. He was their top overall pick last year. So he was never going to be a quiet guy going in the year two, but I feel like the profile and the expectations certainly are getting raised right now by what's being said, not by you and I and not by fans, but by the general manager and the head coach of this football team.
Keep in mind with Keon Coleman, when they're airing their grievances, and I use that term very loosely in public. I do remember the one time last year where like one of the Bills beat guys like asked him about like, oh, like, are you going to be serious? It was during the whole Macy's coat thing. It was right before the season started, and he took offense to that. And, even his agent had an issue with it. And maybe they view that as, hey, let's air it out to motivate him more. I don't know if has anything to do with it. Just because his reaction was kind of like, he was very defiant when he got asked about being serious. It was a convoluted question when he was asked that, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But look, I got more riding on Dalton Kincaid because look, if you want me, like he needs to. I mean, I know we're like 7 months away from the freaking opener, but he needs to step up big next year. And I think he's going to be in a lot of trouble because one thing, and I could be wrong on this, you tell me, it feels like the route tree that Dalton Kincaid runs a lot is like the same thing as, and when I say route tree, I'm talking about where he's normally used. He's used in the middle of the field, it feels like. So Shakir, like how many, like you have a lot of over the middle guys right now with him, and like how many guys do you need in over the field? And you have Dawson Knox. Well, who knows what the hell's going to happen to him? He better take another pay cut. That's all I got to say about him. But he has to find his role within this offense because Shakir's here for the next 4 years or whatever it is. And Shakir is a guy who's going to go over the middle. So is Dalton Kincaid. So I don't know if you can, how good that personnel or how good that passing is going to be when you have that much of guys who just do that. Like they go over the middle. Is he going to be not as used as much because that's where Shakir is? You know what I mean? Like it's something that I think you have to look at.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that more in the coming weeks. Look, they're going to need to be better. No matter what they do in the offseason with free agency and the draft, they're going to be counting heavily on Kincaid and Coleman to pick things up. And yeah, to put a bow on that, it's just a little bit surprising that they've been as upfront. But I also don't want to complain about that because I hate when they never say nothing either, when there's never anything of substance. So now they are, and I don't want to be a hypocrite and complain about that. Anyway, let's take a real quick break, come back. On the video side, we'll be back in like 5 seconds, and we're going to start talking about some of the best and worst free agents under Brandon Beane. All right, I'm back here with Joe from Queens. The best and the worst free agents under Brandon Beane. Now, since going back to 2018, I got a list of like 5 on each side. I want to get your thoughts on them. And these aren't necessarily like 1 through 5. I just think that these are the 5 best. There's probably a lot of people out there wondering, how the Bills are built, draft, trades. And the Bills have made some pretty significant trades actually over the last handful of years for sure. But in terms of like unrestricted free agents, because free agency starts, most people are listening to this on Monday, actually 1 week from today, the Bills may be making moves, whether it's via trade or free agents. It's a decent list. I don't think this is a list that really blows you away. I don't know that there's any, oh my God, what an incredible signing this was in free agency, but there's been some really solid ones. And for me, the 5 best, Cole Beasley, 4 years with the team, he had 233 receptions, 2,456 yards. He had 82 catches, I believe it was in 2020. So he was, through those 4 years, he was great. So Cole Beasley, Mitch Morse, a high profile, expensive free agent that worked out. I mean, he was a starting center here for 5 years, solid. Little bit of a concussion issue at times, but made a Pro Bowl. He was good. John Brown wasn't great for long, but he was great when the Bills needed him. He was the guy before Stephon Diggs. He had 1,000 yards in 2019. I thought he played a big role in helping Josh Allen take that next step in 2019. So I got him on that list. And then I got 2 guys who are actually current offensive linemen for the Buffalo Bills. Connor McGovern, who's been really good in his 2 years. Pretty modest contract, too. Played guard his first year, played center last year. And then David Edwards, who's been on this team now for 2 years. Both of them are going into year 3 with the Bills. 5 pretty decent, good to very decent signings. And there's a couple other like honorable mentions, but what do you think about that list?
I agree with David Edwards. I don't know if I agree with thinking about it, but I don't hate the list. I think the list is pretty accurate. I will maybe, I'm just spitballing like who maybe like it's a good free agent signing. Do you at all put Tyler Rapp on there?
I actually have a list. I'll just tell them. I had 3 guys that I thought of, and I might be forgetting about a couple of people. If you're listening to the show or if you're watching this live, you could chime in as well. Tyler Rapp is one of the 3 that I thought, even though I really didn't like him and he wasn't good for very long, but John Feliciano actually was a very useful free agent for a couple of years with this team.
He sucked.
Mario Addison was here for 2 years. He had 12 sacks. He had a 7-sack season and a 5-sack season. He didn't live up to, I remember he came from Carolina. And he had like 9 sacks, like 2 or 3 straight years. And he was just so. Yeah, I don't know about Taylor Rapp. He's missed too much time, man. He's missed too much time for this team right now. I still don't know how I feel about Taylor Rapp. But the offensive line, where Brandon Beane, I think, is hit on best, it's just actually it's two positions. I literally just all five were from two positions. The offensive line, he has identified some good free agent talent, and at wide receiver between Brown, Beasley. He was only here for a year, but Emmanuel Sanders was a really good fit signing. I thought he brought something, to this offense as well. So
I'm surprised I'm surprised you didn't mention. I'm surprised you didn't mention your boy, the cat hater.
Matt Collins, yeah. I mean, hell, he's another receiver. He's only here for 1 year, though, so far. And who knows if he's coming back. I expect him back, but who knows? But anyway, it seems as we're talking about this, that wide receiver and offensive line have been something that Brandon Beane has done a really good job with.
I don't know about saying he's done a good job with. I mean, it's more like very small sample sizes for the most part. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, look, I don't think many teams, except for the Eagles this past year, are really built on big free agent signings. I think more often than not, when you take those big swings or when you spend a hell of a lot of money on free agency, it usually doesn't go your way. Like the Tennessee Titans, it seems like every year, and the Jacksonville Jaguars sign guys to shitloads of money. And
the Ravens signed Derrick Henry to free agency. That kind of worked for them pretty well. I know
Saquon Barkley sided with the Eagles.
Yeah, so there
very
are
well. But for every one of those guys, there's 5 Tony Pollards who goes to Tennessee, gets big money, and who gives a shit? Doesn't move the needle.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's been modest. I would, and we're gonna get to the bust part soon. But if I would say, actually, I want to save that question for the bust part, and then we could go into that. But it's been modest. It's been okay. I agree with that top 5. The John Brown signing. I mean, Smoke was great that first year. He really helped Josh Allen develop. I thought it sucks he got hurt that second year because he was doing really good the first month, and then he got hurt, and then he kind of fell off. Sadly, Mitch Morse was good, as you said. They paid a lot for him, but they've not been a giantly active team at times in free agency. It's been like kind of like
they get contributors and role players. It feels like more than those big swings that they've
had like, I would say they've had like 2 big swings. Maybe I would say Von Miller and like Mitch Morse. Like Mitch Morse made a lot. Like he made $10 million a year. I mean, he's a center, but that's a big contract for that position. Like that was a big swing.
You could argue he might have been their best one because again, he was a center for 5 years and he was a leader on that offensive line, the captain of that offensive line. And again, you have Josh Allen, a young Josh Allen under center. I think that was a big one. But what you got to say though, when it comes to free agency, and this is not just the Bills, it's league wide. Most free agents become free agents for a reason. It's because either A, that team ain't got no money to pay you, or B, that team doesn't think that you're worth the money that you're asking for. And they're like, nah, you could go hit the open market. You know what I mean? It's not like, again, there are some great players that you hit on, and you just mentioned 2 of them. Henry, a big hit with the Ravens. Barkley, obviously a big hit with the Eagles. And there's others too. And there's a handful of them every year. But there's a lot more guys that I think you regret signing 2 years down the road. And you're like, wow, this was a really big steal. Like we're talking Bills hits and misses, and we're going to talk about misses here in a second. I bet you 31 other teams, their miss list would probably be bigger than their hit list when it comes down to it. The guys I think that do well are the guys that maybe get written off by a team. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, perfect examples. They were kind of cast-offs to some extent anyway, especially Poyer with Cleveland and Hyde with Green Bay to a lesser extent. And look what they did in Buffalo. I feel like Connor McGovern potentially could be on that track where he's the starting center here for 6-7 years, and you look back and you're like, wow, what an incredible free agent signing he was. But I don't think there's a lot of those around the league, to be honest with you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right. And like I said, I guarantee you there's probably a couple that we've forgotten about. All right. So here's the worst. And at least 3 of them are from the same year. And I can't believe how bad Brandon Beane was in 2018. Von Miller, and it's not that Vaughn sucks, and it's not even Brandon Beane's fault, but he tore his ACL, and he obviously never became the player that you gave him $20-some million a year for. So I got him on the list. Star Latulier, who got a 5-year, $50 million contract in 2018. Your boy, Star Latulier.
That's your boy. That's your boy.
A favorite of a lot of
you and your
Bills content creators out there.
Hey, don't be putting me in the line of fire there. You're the one that probably got into 25 fights with Aaron Quinn during your specials about him because you didn't do anything and
he didn't do shit, man. He
was just a dude.
He might have for like a half a year. He sucked. Anyway, that's two. Trent Murphy should be on this list. They gave him 3 years, $21 million. By the way, Star Latulier and Murphy both in that same free agent class. Vernon Butler, a former first-round pick, and he was like, well, can he find that magic in Buffalo? Nope. And Vontae Davis, also a 2018 guy, rest in peace, God rest his soul, a 1-year contract expected to be a significant starter, and he lasted until September when he quit at halftime of a football game. That's my 5, man, and it's not a pretty 5.
Yeah,
it's not good. That's not, you can't put that in Brandon Beane, but he belongs on the list, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw in. I mean, that seems like pretty accurate. I'll throw in. Curtis Samuel. I know it's only been 1 year, but outside of like a couple neat touchdowns in the playoffs, he was horrible. They even did nothing this year.
He's another guy who was hurt though, and just wasn't healthy.
Okay, he was hurt in the preseason, dude. Like, what do you need? Like, come on. Like, he was hurt then. Like, they're paying him 3 years, whatever the hell it was. He didn't do shit at all.
Well, I think you're right until I do think he came on though. I thought he got a lot better. I'm looking it up because I don't want to be wrong.
Oh, God, you're wrong. You're wrong. He had like a couple touchdowns. Okay, like thanks, dude. Like finally you showed up 4 months later. But considering how look, there's free agent signings that you could put like Trent Sherfield on here, but like Trent Sherfield was, when they signed him, he wasn't supposed to really play. He was supposed to be a special teams guy, and they got thrust in, had 2 horrible drops, and no one talked about.
He's supposed to be what Matt Collins was this year. That's what
Matt Collins wasn't really supposed to be like playing a lot of wide receiver. We talked about that. It was kind of like we don't know. It was definitely a we don't know. No one was counting him as your number 2, 3 wide receiver. I know you were because you love everyone. But
not a fun fact about Trent Sherfield, but I'll just throw this out there, man. You can make a very reasonable argument that he cost the Bills a playoff game because he dropped. I mean, we all talk about Diggs and the drop. Well, Trent Sherfield dropped 2 bombs in that football game. He comes down in a game where they lose by 3. He makes those catches, and maybe the Bills don't lose that game.
I see a comment by Ralph Wilson Cena, if you want to bring up, because he's got a good free agent bust. There you go. Josh Norman. That's a good one. I mean, he was supposed to be their number 2 cornerback, and he's known for Derrick Henry killing him, basically. And I think he ended up losing his job, I think, at some point. And like Levi Wallace kind of took over more. So I think that was when Levi
came back like 2 years later as a special teams guy.
Yeah, like that was a pretty bad, like, and that was 2021, and that was when the Bills, I mean, the way the free agent classes were for Beane, he was aggressive in 2018, 2019. 2018, like you went over AJ McCarron, Trent Murphy. It was not good, great. 2019 was great. He had Cole, John Brown, Mitch Morse. Then 2020, he did. I think he had like a couple. Addison was the guy that they kind of brought in because they did a Diggs trade, and that was the big thing for that year. Then 2021 was Emmanuel Sanders, and that's when Josh Norman. Well, wait, was Josh Norman 2020? If someone wants to look that up for me, maybe he was 2020. But I think either way, he lost his job, and then Levi kind of came in. Yeah, it was 20. I think it was 2020. I don't remember when Josh Norman is. If someone,
well, I want to go back and push back a little bit to you on Curtis Samuel. Although I do agree.
Oh, God.
Look, and generally speaking, you're right, because they gave him $8 million. I mean, this is the kind of production he should be having all season. But there were a handful of games where he's a big factor. He had the Kansas City game in the regular season. He had 5 catches for 58 yards and a touchdown. He had
on the Hall of Fame.
I don't want to talk about the finale against New England because that didn't mean nothing. He had 7 catches that game. Who gives a shit? But that Denver playoff game, he had 3 catches for 68 yards. And a touchdown.
8 catches in the calendar. Come on, Pat. You're just trying to argue with me.
All right. I guess where I'm saying it, I'm not putting him as a miss yet. I would say his first year was not what we hoped for, but I don't consider him a miss.
Okay, well, it's still early. He's still on their contract, but he has been a disappointment. Okay, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Considering he's been so far.
All right. Okay.
I'm
Yes.
sorry that you and the film bros got him on the Hall of Fame. Probably.
I'm gonna clip this and save this for a year or two. I think he's gonna be
Look, he might
part of the offense.
He might, but just so far, it hasn't been great, Bob. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I'm going back to a couple other ones too. Kalala Bear Khan says just an unfortunate situation with Vaughn. Yeah, sure. Look, I don't put this on Brandon Beane. He had the balls to go out there and go get a guy, but yeah, an aging guy. But he was great. He had 8 sacks in his first 9 games before he tore that ACL in Detroit on Thanksgiving.
well, Pat, that's where you put it on. Look, Von Miller was a guy who did have an injury history, and he's on the wrong side of 30. You have to consider that. Is it completely his fault? No, absolutely not. Does he deserve a little blame? Yeah, you put $120 million into a 32-year-old defensive lineman, and you play on turf. And yeah, he got injured in Detroit, but you have your own turf. That matters. It wears off you if you have the fake fucking grass, and I think he deserves a little bit of that, because he, instead of just being oh, hey, I'm gonna he got Von Miller out of desperation because they got their shit caved in 13 seconds. And this was after they had gone in and drafted Boogie Basham, Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, and those guys were not contributing fast enough. So Beane got desperate, and it was I'm just going to give this guy a ton of freaking money and go Madden GM, which, hey, I'm not knocking that. I would probably do the same thing, but not to that guy. Not to a guy no one in their mother, and before free agency started that year, was clamoring for Von Miller. Because everyone probably thought, I'm assuming people thought he's the older, why do you want him?
I don't agree with that.
What do you mean
I don't think people in Buffalo were clamoring for Von Miller because I didn't think there was any realistic possibility that Brandon Beane was going to sign him or that he would want to sign with the Buffalo Bills. I think it was more that.
I guess, sure, but I'm just saying, would you want to sign a 32-year-old to a $120 million contract who's a defensive lineman? If someone said to you before you signed Von Miller, hey, do you want to sign $120 million? And I know he's not going to get that or whatever, but would you say, yeah, sign me up for a 32-year-old pass rusher?
Here's the reason why. It's the same reason why in a week from now, we might be talking about the Bills signing Khalil Mack to a 2-year, $55 million contract because I'm in win now mode. Josh Allen's in a prime year, and I don't know how many, whacks at the pinata you're going to get with Josh Allen in his prime. So I'm tired of fucking building second and third round picks that Brandon Beane has not done very good with these first and second round picks. So yes, I will take a swing on an older Von Miller type. The case in this, this case being Khalil Mack come next week, because I do not think the Bills are trading for Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons or Max Crosby, as fun as it is to talk about. I think that's a little just media and fan-driven speculation as opposed
Pat
to
Moran-driven speculation too.
Yeah, sure, to some extent. But a guy like Khalil Mack, old, not worth probably that much money, but I'm willing to take that swing because I want to win a Super Bowl right now. I'm tired of worried about, 2-3 years down the road. But you are right. I mean,
I would put that money towards some
responsibility on taking a chance on an older player. And if it don't work out, some of that does have to be on the GM. I think you're 100% right about that.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, that's it. And now, so here's the question I have before we move on. Would you say Brandon Beane has had more free agent misses or more free agent hits?
It depends on what side of the football you're talking about. You're talking about offense, I think he's done a better job. He hasn't had a lot of misses, so I have a list right now. And let me run through a couple of just so I can kind of answer your question. I got some honorable mention shitty misses. Jamison Crowder was not a good pickup. I thought he was going to be much better than he was. A couple offensive linemen, Marshall Newhouse, he was a disaster. Russell Bodine, I don't even know if people remember him. He was the guy who took over after Eric Wood got forced out of the game. Who else? O.J. Howard, didn't even make the team. I have Sherfield on my list because, again, I thought Sherfield was going to be a valuable player. I thought he was going to be like Mack was this year, and he wasn't, and he dropped 2 passes. And then I got Mike Edwards as well because, I thought he was going to be a starter. And he sucked, and he didn't want to be here. He didn't try hard, apparently. Anyway, so
Darrell Williams was okay.
He was all right. I don't have him on either list because I thought he was all right. I thought he was all right. I think on the offense, he's had more hits than misses because again, Morse, Edwards, McGovern, Beasley, Brown. He's had lots of hits on the offense.
It's been a while since the skill guys, though. Cole and Brown's like that second year he was here. It's been a while.
And then when I go to like the misses, they're like, you could add, if you want to add Damian Harris because he got hurt, sure. But was he really that important? Or Latavius Murray, was he really that important? Not really.
Well, hold on. I would say this, though. Those guys were penciled in to be like the number 2 running backs, though.
Sure.
And they got here. So they were supposed to be important, kind of, because they wanted a running back by a committee. They weren't.
I would say far and away on offense, Brandon Beane has done a good job when it comes to free agents. I would say on defense, for the most part, he's done a bad job. Von Miller didn't work out. Starla Tutele, which, by the way, I, at the moment, shout out to him, joined the chat late, and he said, did we include Star as a free agent? Bust. 1 or 2 okay years did not justify the contract. Absolutely. I mean, spot on right there. 10 years, $50 million. He had like one pretty good year as far as I'm concerned, and then he didn't do shit after that. So, yeah, Vaughn, Starla Tutele, Trent Murphy was a disaster. Vernon Butler was a disaster. Vontae Davis was a disaster. These free agents on the defensive side of the ball stink, and there's not a lot of good ones. Leonard Floyd was good for 12 games. He had like 8 sacks, or he led the team in sacks 2 years ago or whatever. But he had like 1 sack over the last 8 or 9 games, including the playoffs.
You hated him.
He
didn't like him.
He had 1 sack down the stretch, and he was the reason why the Bills had 12 guys on the field against Denver. He's the guy who didn't know that he needed to get off the field. So to answer your question and to sum that part up of the show, yeah, I think Brandon Beane has had more hits on the offensive side, and he's had a lot more misses on the defensive side. And it'll be fun to see free agency start this week. And you better hope it tracks different, because I can almost guarantee you that any big hits they take in free agency is going to come on the defensive side of the football. So
cheap plug next week, because it's before free agency starts, correct? When I'm back on, like it's before that.
It will be literally okay. We'll be recording the night before. When people listen to it on Monday, free agency will have started.
Since Pat doesn't promote me ever on the podcast like he does everyone else, I will be unveiling the free agency Bills bingo board. So next week, I'm going to have all the cliches, all the things that everyone's going to say. We're doing that. Don't piss me off if we don't do that. We're doing that next week, Patrick. And I'll have that bingo board ready, because there's going to be some fun stuff on there. A lot of shit talking probably, but that's next week before free agency.
All right. Fair enough. I'm looking forward to that. That sounds good.
About time you're looking forward to something I created.
I want to talk about Jason Peters briefly. So Jason Peters retired officially, 21-year career. Absolutely will be a future Hall of Famer. Should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Of course, he played his first 5 seasons with the Buffalo Bills, was a 2-time All-Pro, got traded, which, I knew he got traded to Philly. And I want to get your thoughts on Jason Peters and that whole trade, because I know you still think this is one of the dumbest things the Bills have ever done. And I'm not sure that you're wrong either. So, but anyway, they traded him to the Philadelphia Eagles because they wouldn't pay him for a first, a fourth, and a sixth. And I forgot briefly, the first round pick that they got was a good player, a really good player, my guy.
Your boy.
Obviously, look, Jason Peters is the first ballot Hall of Famer, but Eric, it's not like they didn't get nothing. They got Eric Wood in that trade for him, and Eric Wood was a very good player. He made the Pro Bowl. His career got cut short because of an unfortunate injury. Who knows how long he would have stayed as the center of the Buffalo Bills. But anyway, they got Eric Wood. But besides that, the other 2 picks, I'm going
to try to guess. Okay.
All right, well, they got a 4th and a 6th, and everyone listening, you can try to guess as well. But they got a 4th and a 6th. The 6 was a conditional that did not come until 2 years later. But go ahead.
Okay, Chris Harrison?
No.
That I don't know.
He was part of the Marshawn Lynch trade.
That's who I was thinking of. Okay, so go ahead.
I'll give you a hint. All right. Okay, so they got Eric Wood.
Yes.
The 4th rounder was a former tight end for the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, and this is 2009, correct? The draft?
I think it was 2008.
No, 2009 was when Peters got, like, before the season, because I'll get into that. Okay, tight end for the Bills. Nelson. Not Nelson. Yes, the guy from Miami who got he fumbled it, quote, air quote, against Baltimore when they like had him stuck for like 5 years, and then
I thought he was going to be.
Yes,
I thought he was going to be a gem. He had like some good athleticism. I thought he was going to be a gem. I just want to confirm though that I know Sean Nelson is definitely the right guy. I just want to make sure I had the right year, and I'm pretty sure I do. It was
2009, because that's when Peters got traded, and then he caught two things about that guy. I do remember all the draft bros loved him because he was supposed to be like a second rounder. He fell to the Bills in the 4th round, and everyone was like, total steal. He caught a touchdown in his debut against the Patriots. That was the McKelvin game. He caught a touchdown in that game when McKelvin fumbled it. And the thing I remember is 2010 against Baltimore in overtime. He catches the pass. Baltimore, like it's your typical gang tackle where the ref's supposed to stop the play and he doesn't. And like 5 seconds later, the gang rips the ball out of his freaking hand, out of him, and it's a fumble. Yep. And they scored on that drive. But yes, I remember him was supposed to be big and he wasn't.
This 2009 draft, as I'm looking at it, those first 4 picks are so polarizing. So you had Aaron Maben, who ended up being obviously an all-time Bills bust.
Terrible.
And in the same first round, late in the first round with the Peters pick, you got Eric Wood, who turned out to be a very, very good player. Then you had Jarius Byrd in that same draft, who looked like he was going to be a Hall of Fame safety early in his career. Had all those interceptions as a rookie. And then Andy Levitre, who was good here, but he didn't become really good until he left the Bills and he went to the Titans, and he became a very good lineman. But there's a lot of pretty big names there. All the rest of the guys.
You mentioned
Langster. You remember Ellis Langster?
Yes, he was. Wasn't he deaf or he had a speech?
I don't remember. I remember
he had a speech issue. That's all I kind of remember about Ellis Langster. Yeah, 46 was the number.
Nick Harris, undersized
linebacker. Yeah. Real quick story on Andy Levitre. He has me blocked on Twitter, or he did. I don't know if he even still on Twitter, but he blocked me because something happened where I think he DM'd or he naked pictures of like his girlfriend or something, and I made a comment about it and I got blocked for it. Like he did something like he wasn't like he messed up something like where he wasn't supposed to do it, and somehow pictures came up of
Ralph Wilson Sr., by the way, I want to backtrack a little bit, brought up a good point because he said Hyde was a good defensive signing, but was it Beane or was it Whaley? It was not Beane. Yeah, it was not Beane. Anyway, then the 4th round pick was Sean Nelson for Peters. And then they got a 6th the following year, which turned out to be Danny Batten. So Eric Wood,
the linebacker,
and Danny Batten turned out to be the trade for Jason Peters. Again, a 9-time Pro Bowler, a 6-time All-Pro. One of the best. You could make a case he's the best Bills offensive tackle in the history of the franchise. It would be right up there. But I know, quick thoughts before we wrap up with a couple other things. But
it's
Peters, man, great player.
Great player. I hated that trade. I thought they should have paid him. They didn't. I don't know. I remember years later, I think it might have been Sal Capaccio said like they wanted, like he mentioned like he didn't want to be here. And I was like, no, he didn't want to be here because he wanted to get paid. And I always remember Ralph Wilson came out and was like, we're not paying him. Like he basically was like, we're not paying him. He signed his contract. It's like, dude, he outperformed it. He was a right tackle. At that time, if you were a left tackle, you made more money because you were the blind side. And they moved him to left tackle where he was great. And one of those guys that, like, there should have been, like, a protest of do not trade this guy. And there wasn't a fans. I don't know. Maybe it was because
his contract, what he got with Philly, he left and he signed with Philly.
God, I'm going to guess like 6 for $70 million or something.
Like 4 years. And this was back in 2009.
Sure.
4 years, $51.5 million. His average salary was $12.86 million per year. That's $24 million, $24.4 in guarantees. So that's what the Eagles gave him. The Bills obviously didn't pay them. When you go in the annals of Bills history, Joe, and maybe it doesn't matter because this team fucking sucked anyway, the Bills. They weren't going to be good if Jason Peters signed long-term.
Well,
anyway.
He was, but
it's one of their bigger mistakes ever, for sure.
It was, but you have to remember who replaced him. It was Demetrius Bell, who was horrible. Shouldn't have, terrible. Then after him, I think it was Cordy Glenn. Like they drafted him, he fizzled out pretty quickly, and then I don't even know who. Like, yeah, it was like him in like.
Didn't we just do this? Remember last week we were talking about a string of awful fucking right tackles?
Yeah, well, the
that
left
Bills
tackle.
had? Are you going to make
Yeah.
me go through and look through the left
No,
tackles?
I just went through the left tackle. I just went through the left tackles. It was Demetrius Bell, then Cordy Glenn in 2012. Glenn was here till
Chris Harrison for a year or two before.
yeah, Chris Harrison was
Cordy Glenn.
Yes, before you're right. It was him. But like Peters kept playing. Peters could have been the blindside tackle for Josh Allen in 2019, or 2020. Here's the thing I would say this. This is interesting to me, and then we can move on real quick. Him and Marshawn Lynch should go in the Hall of Fame, I would say. Right? Like,
Peters is a lock.
Lock. Marshawn Lynch will be debated a little bit, but he should go in the Hall of Fame. Those are two former Bills. And the last Bills player to make the Hall of Fame, I believe, was Andre Reed. In terms, you could say T.O., but maybe you could say T.O. But like you have these guys who were drafted or started their careers here. You got T.O., you got Jason Peters, and you got Marshawn Lynch. Let me ask you this. Of those three guys, who do you think is the more Buffalo Bill where like fans will like that person more?
Peters, Lynch, and who's the other one?
It's T.O. because T.O.'s in. Like T.O. had the 1 year. He's in the Hall of Fame. Like, because again, they don't have like a guy who played 10 years. Like Josh Allen's going to be the next Hall of Famer for them, probably. But like, it's been like Andre Reed went in like, I think 10, maybe. I don't even remember what the hell he got in, 11 maybe. But like, it's going to be, when those guys get in, it's going to be 20, 28, 29 or whatever the fuck. It's going to be 20 years later. Of those, like between those two guys and T.O., who would you say fans liked more? Of like, oh yeah, he was great. Even he's a Hall of Famer. Who would you say of those?
I would say fans would say Marshawn Lynch. I don't know that Marshawn Lynch is going to get in for sure. I think he should. I'd have to look. I don't know, but
I think he should get in.
But Hall of very good now anyway.
Yeah,
so I mean, guys who are way lesser than Marshawn Lynch have got in the Hall of Fame. If he gets in, assuming he is, I would say Marshawn for sure. Peters is a lock. He's going to the Hall of Fame. I don't know how Bills fans feel about him, in part because he was an offensive lineman as opposed to a running back. He wanted to get paid. He deserved to get paid. It was a stupid trade. But again, in hindsight, he would have helped. And who knows how things play out if he stays. But those were such bad football teams during his time when he was coming up. Those mid 2000s. Just a shitty fucking football team. But yeah, he's one of the greats, man. He was one of the greats. And when you sit there and you write your all-time best Buffalo Bills teams of all times, if he's not your second team left tackle, then you're doing it wrong.
He was awesome, and his story will always resonate with me. Like a guy who was an unsigned tight end, and then they converted him
exactly.
And that never happens. And I will say, like, in terms of trades, it's the worst trade with a player on the roster that they ever did. Maybe, and Marshawn Lynch, I think, would be second. The reason why I don't have Peters a little bit, even though the compensation was better, because Eric Wood is better than whoever they think Chris Harrison, you can find a lot of replacements for Marshawn Lynch and running back, like we've talked about. You cannot find a stud left tackle who's going in the Hall of Fame. That's not on the list there. But
I agree. I agree fully. Quickly here. So, I want to turn. It's not really about hockey, but it's hockey related. The Carolina Hurricanes used to be years ago the Hartford Whalers. They relocated to Carolina. 20 years, in fact, this past week against the Buffalo Sabres. Don't even want to talk about them right now. But Carolina put the Hartford throwbacks on, and you and I were kind of on the same wavelength. I'm like, I don't know if I'm a Hartford fan. And I lost them to Carolina. I don't care. It's been 20 years. I'm not over it, I don't think. I don't know that's – it almost feels like I'm almost trolling me. This is how I would feel as a fan. You're almost trolling me at this point more than honoring me by wearing a uniform to remind me that you fucking left my city and you relocated to another state. I don't know that I feel like that would be a fitting tribute. If this were the Buffalo Bills and they became the Toronto Bills – or they became the San Diego Bills.
Well, they wouldn't be the San Diego Bills. They would be like the San Diego Padres or something, because they would change their name.
Right. It's not even saying, the Toronto Argos or the San Diego Sharks or whatever the fuck. And, 15, 20 years down the road, they put on the Bills uniforms. They have a throwback retro week. If I'm alive, I don't know that I like that. I don't feel like
I don't
you're
think anyone
honoring
would
me.
like that.
You are reopening wounds that I thought closed years ago, and you are just ripping them off right now. And I don't think I would like that.
I agree with that. But I think it would be terrible. But if you're the owner of the Carolina Hurricanes or do you care? Like, why do I care? Like, that's 20 years ago that they moved, or like 20 plus, 25. God, they moved, I think in 96 they moved in, I think it was, or 97, whatever. Like, they moved a long time ago. Like, can you blame them for doing that in terms of, hey, it's been long enough? Like, eventually you have to get remarried. You know what I mean? After, like, your person dies or whatever, like, you gotta start dating, and maybe it's like, I agree with you. Like, if I'm old and I'm seeing the Bills, I would hate that. But if you're in their shoes, like, why do they care? It's like, it's been long enough. And teams, I think the Titans have done that, where they took the Oilers colors for their alternate jersey, and that they moved in what, 90
year, man.
Yeah, they moved in 96, I believe, or 97.
They did it against the Tennessee Titans too.
Yeah, like, that's even more. I mean, but maybe it doesn't. Ralph Wilson, he says it sucks when the Clippers wear the Buffalo Braves uniforms. See, that's, for me, it doesn't. Like, I think it's awesome. But maybe
you really don't remember the Braves.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. So that's the thing too. They could view it as like, and the Whalers were a team. I think they only played really like 15, 20 years in the NHL. They weren't around for that long. But yeah, like it is kind of it's a money grab, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's I thank goodness for all those. I wish the Bills, like, I don't know when the Bills are going to start doing new uniforms, but they need to do some retro stuff soon. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to do it when they move into the stadium.
I'm going to say maybe when they go into the new stadium, they'll do a little more.
Do you care about uniforms ever? Are you a uniform guy? I mean, I know
yes and no. No, because a lot of people buy the jersey. I don't buy jerseys. I'm not a jersey guy. I never liked the way jerseys looked on me. I also feel like they're a waste of money. Buy a Bills hoodie or something like that. It's forever. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You go buy 90% of these players. You go buy a Stephon Diggs jersey. You know when he's 14s out there with Diggs or on somebody's back right now. I don't know. Maybe people who buy them don't care. And if you don't care, that's fine. But anyway, to answer your question, no, I'm not a uniform guy in terms of buying and investing in the merchandise, but I do care about how they look. And also I'm kind of superstitious. I just feel the vibes. Like when they played the Chiefs, I wanted them to be white on white. I didn't want the white with the blue pants. Didn't work out anyway, but I don't know, it's just based on vibes maybe, but no, I'm not a big uniform guy. Like I don't remember most of their old uniforms and shit, but
sure.
I like to see them switch it up.
Cool.
Anyway, all right, let's finish off with some comments from a couple people as we've been, like I said, we're live on the video side. They've been chiming in. And as always, I do appreciate everybody here who's watching and listening to this show. Mark says, going back to wrestling here, Razor Ramon was my dude. Look, man, you and I are lifelong wrestling fans, and we will be wrestling fans till the day we die. A lot of people used to be wrestling fans and then they stop. And then maybe something like Cena comes and happens and kind of brings you back momentarily.
I think that's how it was when Hogan turned heel. He brought a bunch of, that's why, look, it's still early. We'll see what happens. But if Cena's gone at the end of this year, then it's not going to be as profound. When Hogan turned heel, it changed everything. It changed everything for WCW. It changed everything for the anti-hero was the man.
The industry. Cena's not changing the industry. Cena's giving you a shock, oh my God moment, and he's selling WrestleMania. Yeah. It's not going to last. Cena is done after this year. I do believe that. And he's not going to stay a bad guy for long. I mean, he does too many Make-A-Wish things. Like I said, I do hope that they sell some Cena merch because I would be all about it. Also, the WWE should try to get Taylor Swift in WrestleMania.
I mean, they got Jason Kelsey last year. Maybe they can get Kelsey. You know what they should do? They should get Drake and who's the guy that
Drake was there.
Yeah, I saw that.
But they didn't highlight him. They didn't get Did Kendrick Lamar bury him that far?
Yeah.
And Drake,
he's got go away heat. Go away heat, man.
Drake was probably the second biggest star in the world after Taylor Swift as recently as like 18 months, 2 years ago.
Right.
And now he's at a WWE pay-per-view and they don't even put him up on screen because I'm sure they were saving, even though he's in Toronto, there would have probably been a lot of boos, man. Kendrick Lamar he ended that dude, man. Alex Barber, the last wrestler I really cared about was Captain Lou Albano.
Are you like 70?
Here's a hot take. He might be the third best talker, manager-wise ever. Paul Heyman, Bobby Heenan, Captain Lou Albano. He was
This shows how old you are, because Captain Lou is. I only remember Captain Lou for two things. One, he did that horrible movie called Body Slam. Did you ever see that movie Body Slam?
Yeah, I don't remember, but yes.
Yeah, so he was in it, and he came back with the head shrinkers, like, I don't know, in 95. He didn't really say anything. So that's how old you are, because I barely remember him. So,
yeah, he was great. He was Jimmy Snuka's manager. He was the one who went the mid-'80s with Cyndi Lauper, kind of the rock and wrestling thing.
That I remember. All right, I've seen that in like shows.
Yeah,
and stuff.
He played a big role in that. Big Poppy says, "Hey Patrick, what's your guy's first choice in for the Bills first round pick?" Appreciate the question. It's just way too early.
Yeah,
I got to see free agency play out. If you go get Myles Garrett and you got Greg Rizzo, you're not taking an end in the first round. If you go and trade for Jonathan Allen from Washington, I don't think you're taking a defensive tackle at 30. If you go get Devontae Adams, I don't think a wide receiver at 30 is in play. It's a little bit too early to really zero in on a position, let alone players.
I do rely on like the not vibes, but like the sense of something has to happen. Like, it's been too long since they addressed this position. And I feel like you have to look at it that way, where they've hit. And I feel like cornerback is going to be the go there. I don't know, whatever the best cornerback is at 30, that's what they're going to go with.
Corner?
Right there. Cornerback, yes.
Could
because
be.
They don't have. Yeah, they already got money tied to Rousseau. They have Rousseau as being that guy that has to get off the contract soon or get a new one possibly. And I think they want to rewrite the Elam miss, and they want to have another cornerback.
Real quick question. I want a quick answer today because we'll talk more in depth next week because it'll be the eve of free agency. But do you expect, and then we'll move on to the rest of these. Right now, as we're sitting here a week away from free agency, do you expect the Buffalo Bills to be, we'll call it abnormally aggressive during this free agency period leading up to the draft? Or do you expect them to go plucking guys for roles like they have been the last couple of years, with like the David Edwards, Mac Hollins, a lower end cornerback type? Or do you expect them to take some swings come next week?
I'm predicting you're going to be very angry by Wednesday next week. I don't think they're if I know Brandon Beane, and I don't know him, sorry, we don't golf. He loves his own guys. They have a list of guys coming up, and I think he's going to view it as, we got to re-sign Rousseau, we got to re-sign Cook possibly, we got to re-sign Benford. That's how he's going to look at it. I don't think they're going to be that active, and I think you're going to be pissed off. I think it's going to be. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to predict this right now. You're going to be pissed off. Then you're going to see someone that you respect, like a Greg Thompson, go, "Oh, it's not a big of a deal. Let's not panic." And then you're like, "Okay, I shouldn't panic. You're right." That's what's going to happen. You're going to panic, and then like a content bro is going to like say like, "You people need to calm down. Don't worry." And then that's how you were like the last year at the draft. You were angry and you wanted to kill people. Then the next day you started hearing other people that you respect go, "Oh, it's not that bad." You're like, you know what? Maybe you're right. That's how it's going to happen for you. But I don't think they're going to be active. They've not been. We just went through that fucking free agency list. The most they were really, really active was when they had $1 billion in salary cap. That was 2019. It wasn't $1 billion, but they had cleared the books. They were active as all hell. They signed everyone. Quinton Spain, you actually forgot to mention him in that free agency rigmarole. Anyways, but
he's middle of the road. He was good, then he was awful.
Then they I don't know what the hell happened. They gave him a new contract and cut him after 2 games. It was weird, but he was good signing at that time. The first time he was good, but he was a prove it deal.
Yeah,
but that was like the last time they were super active, when they had a lot of cap money, and that was Beane's second year here, and they didn't have draft capital coming up yet at that point because they had killed everyone off from the Whaley Manos era. So I'm saying it right now. I don't think they're going to be that active. I really
We'll
don't.
see. Now, I will be clear. I want a 2021 type where go all in on a player. It was Von Miller then. I don't know who it's going to be now. I want that. Going, like you said, having a ton of cap room or making a ton of splashy signings doesn't always work. Look no further than 2018. Trent Murphy sucked. Star Latutelay, despite what other people think, he sucked. Vontae Davis was a waste. It was an awful signing. So not always being aggressive doesn't mean that you're going to be better off for it. Let's get to a couple more of these before we get out of here. Sean McDermott doesn't value speed. He wants to win every game 17-10. Is that your burner account from like 2 years ago right now saying stuff like that?
No, Mark talked shit about me earlier in the chat, I believe. So it's not my burner unless I'm like throwing a swerve at you. Does he value speed? I mean, he keeps talking about he wants a deep threat, and they've tried it. Like they tried it with MVS, and he was a burner. You were all on MVS's bandwagon, and the smart one, was like, he ain't gonna do shit, and I was right. And I think they do want speed. I think they want, but the thing is, like, they want like a gimmick. They want like a guy who's like a specialty guy, like an MVS, like a guy who's going to do one thing and that's it. Where I would like an all-purpose guy who's going to do a lot of multiple things.
Sure.
But go ahead. What's the next? What's Big Papa Bill?
Big Papa Bill says, I'd honestly just want to keep our 10 draft picks. Garrett Crosby and or Parsons all want big contracts. We still need
Allen. Them. Who cares?
That's not going to be cheap. Yeah, we're not bad. Look, you can make a case for keeping the 10 picks, but how many of them are going to make the roster? You got to look at it this way. Maybe they package to move up a little bit.
I would like, in a perfect world, we talked about Von Miller earlier. I don't want a hired gun who's going to be there for 1 to 2 years. I know you want to win a Super Bowl right away. I get that. If there's no alternative, I'll do it. What I would want is the guy that's coming off his rookie deal, or in that Myles Garrett, Crosby, like they're around 30, under 30 at this point in their lives. Give me that, where they're going to be here 3-4 more years.
Free agency, though. That's the problem.
Well, they want out, allegedly.
No,
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I mean, I have to.
Well, that's not true. I was wrong. A team like Philadelphia, Josh Sweat is that guy. A defensive edge who's ascending. He had like 8.5, 9 sacks. He killed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but they can't pay everybody. He might end up getting free because they got Jalen Carter. They got Davis. Milton Williams is defensive tackle. They might lose him. My point is they got other guys they got to sign. So a guy like that might get through the cracks, but you don't.
I want Devontae Adams. How about that? I want the Bills to trade for him.
Well, are you going to get Aaron Rodgers too? Because then it seems like those fucking two guys are joined at the hip.
Yeah, I don't get that. But like, who wants Aaron Rodgers? Like, is he going to go to
maybe the Giants? It makes sense if you're Brian Dable and you're Joe Schoen, you're winning or you're getting fired. So you're not drafting. Even if you get the top quarterback in the draft, you're not going to be able to sell ownership on, hey, we might suck again this year because we got a rookie quarterback. This team's got to win games or they're going to get fired. I think Aaron Rodgers is washed up trash. I want to be clear about that.
Yes, you've said that 25 times before.
Go get Sam Darnold. Hell, Kirk Cousins would be a better quarterback for me than Aaron Rodgers at this point. But I think it's going to be. It certainly seems like the Giants are. It's going to be an interesting week. Some shit's going to go down this week around the NFL. Guys are going to get cut, including the Bills. Von Miller, when we record this episode next week, there's a good chance Von Miller's not going to be a Buffalo Bill anymore.
Yeah. I'll say this. Beane has done a great job hyping everyone, loving everyone. That, if you asked me when the season ended, before he did all his pressers, I would have said, like, Von's totally gone. Or Dawson Knox might be gone. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, Brandon Beane, like, he's got the silver tongue. He just fucking talks and talks and talks and hypes everyone up. Like, he's done a good job, and like, I don't know who's gonna get cut. Hamlin seems like he's walking. I know you're thrilled about that. But
is he gonna be a backup on this team, making about $1.5 million? Because that's his worth. He ain't no starter, no $3 million a year player. You go to Pittsburgh or some stupid ass team could give you that.
You hate him so much.
It better not be Buffalo. That would just
the guy died, and you can't stand him because of his dad.
Yeah, that doesn't help. Though.
Yeah, it's okay.
That don't help, but I don't think he's that good. Look, we don't know DeMar Hamlin Road right now. Oh. You know how I feel about him. He's an NFL player. He just ain't no goddamn starter. Mark says, he was actually responding to someone else. By the way, if you're watch it on the YouTube side and the live chat replay comes up if you're watching this on demand. Sometimes those chats can be more interested in what Joe and I are actually talking about on the show. But anyway, he says, I love Jalen Carter, but Beane and McDermott hate those types. They care about Carter being a captain at Duke. It's a fucking joke. Dwayne Carter, you and I have been on this, mainly you. Now, this team needs to go get a couple assholes, maybe, instead of that, culture in the locker room. Everyone love everybody.
Get talent, man. It's all about
guys with checkered past with higher upside. You want to be aggressive. You want to take chances. Maybe you go draft a guy early in the draft whose stock's falling because he got in some shit when he was in high school or college, and you feel confident.
If you have this amazing culture, what they talk about all the time that everyone loves to jerk off to, you can have a couple of possible bad apples because the culture will make them good apples. And they have that. So, get some guys who are dicks and, who are really good at it. Yeah. Give me some wide receivers or pass rushers, man. That's what
Alex disagrees with you. Alex Barber says big baller Beane will make a big splash this year, guaranteed. Ralph disagrees. He says cheap free agent fill-ins. Somebody's gonna have to be right or wrong here.
We're gonna find out. Like I said, I just can't see it because they love their own draft guys and they want to re-sign them. They have a lot, and I think that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be roll dudes.
This draft is filled with monster defensive tackles. Hope we could double dip in that department, including in cornerbacks. I like that take as well, Big Pop.
Keep in mind, you go defensive line. It's going to take a couple years for them to really do well.
Spain signing sucked because he replaced Wyatt Teller. That's a bad trade too. You want to want a bad trade, dude? They only got a 5th round pick and they gave up a Pro Bowl caliber offensive tackle or offensive lineman.
Yeah, but that's one of those. It's kind of like maybe in your world, the same as Von Miller. He wasn't playing. He was a late draft pick. No one predicted he was going to be that good.
Yeah.
For Teller.
Do you guys think we'll bring the best third down back in Ty Johnson back? Yes, I do. I think Ty Johnson should be.
No, get out of here. I don't want him back here. I want him gone.
What?
We need to resign. Yeah, I just said it. What are you gonna do? Nothing. You don't need. Yeah, I just said it. Give James Cook more carries. Feed him the rock. Okay, you have Greg Davis. You don't need 3 running backs. I don't like this 3 running back thing anymore.
You like Ray Davis that much that you're just willing to let Ty Johnson go?
Yeah,
Johnson is
go draft a guy in the 5th round and give
instead of giving Ty Johnson probably $1.5 million if he's gonna get.
I bet you he gets more money than $1.5 million. I bet you he does. He's gone. Yeah, he's gone.
Really?
No. Yeah, I think he's gone. I don't think what you're gonna spend. What is his value? I don't even know. I haven't done research because I have a kid and took over my life.
Probably around what I said, I would think.
I don't think $1.5 million.
I think he got 1.1 million last year with the Bills.
Who the hell did the Bills? I'm trying to think of a guy an equivalent to that.
Might be a team. Maybe there's a team out there that says, you know what, we have a vision where you could be a 50% of the down guy, and maybe we'll give you $2.5 million. You're saying if he's offered, let's just say it's $2.5 million, you're not paying Ty Johnson.
I need to find out. I'm being real with you. If James Cook comes into his last year in the free agency, I need to find out if James Cook is an every down back or he's the man. You're not going to be able to do that if Ty Johnson's coming on the field every fucking third down.
2.7 million is the spot rack estimation, market value spot rack. Yeah.
But you see what I mean, though. You need to find out if James Cook's an every down back. You have to.
I don't think he's not an every down back.
But he's young. But he's okay. As I told you last week, and you don't remember because you.
I do remember, but I still.
What I say last week, I said you can train to be a better blocker, bro. All you gotta do is this. You get beefed up. What the fuck?
So for 3 years they didn't bother to try to train him. Is that what you're saying? He's not good. And sometimes I can train.
You know what? Tiki Barber had a fumbling problem for the first 4 years of his career, and then he figured out how to fucking tuck it in because Tom Coughlin saved his life or whatever the fuck. It can happen. Okay, so just you have to coach. I would rather see James Cook become an every down back, and you should and that's what I think you should do. You have to figure out if you're going to sign this guy or not.
I just don't bring 1,000%. Bring back all 3 guys. They all got.
Oh yeah, let's just bring them back. When we bring back LaShawn McCoy, let's bring him back.
Last thing I want to, and then we got to get out of here. But I want next week again when we meet up, It'll be the eve of free agency.
I'm going to have the best bingo board of all time.
The Bills are over the cap right now. So there's going to be a lot to talk about on this show next week. There's going to be some restructures. There may be an extension to create some cap room, converting signing bonuses, stuff like that. I do think it's either Von Miller or AJ Epinesa, DeQuan Jones. No, not DeQuan Jones. I take that back. Von Miller, AJ Epinesa, one of those two guys are going to get cut this week. That's my kind of like semi-bold prediction for this week.
Yeah. Well, look, we got, I'm very happy for your bold prediction. I'm sure you're going to be bold. You can't wait to meet up with Joe and Tyler. You're going to be bolding up for that. I had a sex innuendo for that, but I couldn't get it out. But look, I'm very happy. What was this, episode 998 or 97?
998. Yep.
All right. Of course, I should have been on the 1,000 one, but you don't like me that much. But like, congratulations to you on making it 1,000. I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you talk about this 5 days a week. I'm very. I don't want to say you're good because you're not. No, you're fine. But you put a lot of effort into it. I'm very humbled that you would have me on this podcast, even though I drive you crazy on private messenger, and you drive me crazy because you're a fucking annoying asshole. And I can't get you to talk to me about The Rock turning heel or John Cena turning heel for 14 hours, but I can get your 25 takes on the content summit every day of the week. And I can't get you to talk to me about that when I want to talk, but I congratulate you on that. And I'm looking forward to episode 1,000. 999, that's going to be deleted out of the freaking queue. I'm not hearing your bullshit of you talking about content bro summits.
Joe Marino, Greg Thompson.
Oh, God.
Tomorrow, episode 999.
Can you ask Greg Thompson if he bleaches his teeth from that photo? Because those teeth are pretty white.
Then Tyler Dunn and Joe B. Episode 1000 live from Sunny Reds. For Joe from Queens, who I think I'm going to do the research this week. I'm pretty confident you've been on this show more than anyone else has. You
don't even thank me for putting you over. You're just like, let's just move on to the better stuff to put over. That was nice.
That was as close to putting me over, I think, as you're ever going to get me.
I put you over, and you just no-sold it because you were like, I got to get to the other thing. I was basically like, Brooklyn Brawler getting the boot out of the ring. You threw me out like, oh, thanks for selling for me, brother. I got to get these other guys on.
Every single thing on this show always comes back to wrestling. There's always going to be a wrestling term or a wrestling angle to congrats, Pat, complaining 1,000 times. What day is 1,000, Pat? All right. So like I said, this is airing on Monday on the podcast side. So Tuesday is 999 with Greg, Joe, and Bruce. And then 1,000 Tuesday night on the video side, 8 p.m. live stream. And it'll be in podcast form on Wednesday. So, all right, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Joe from Queens. I'll be back with a brand new episode. Like I said, Greg, Joe, and
yes.
Bruce 999 coming up.
I'm talking over you for promoting the 999 thing. It should be 666. My God, it's going to be horrible. Bye, everyone.